In November, my team began serious negotiation with a bipartisan group of senators. The result was a bipartisan bill with the toughest set of border security reforms we've ever seen. Oh, you don't think so? Oh, you don't like that bill, huh? That conservatives got together and said it was a good bill? I'll be darned. That's amazing.
The boos raining down. House Republicans giving President Biden an earful when he brought up the failed bipartisan border bill during his address last night. Joining us now, man who had a front row seat, House Speaker Mike Johnson. Welcome. Good to see you this morning.
Good to see you. I'm still shaking my head. I'm sorry. It's just
you didn't really have a poker face last night.
I'm not very good at it. My wife warned me about that. It was difficult to sit through. It was a hyper-partisan speech that was just full of information that everyone in the room knew that was not true.
Well, we knew that he was going to point the finger at you, at House Republicans, saying, I met you halfway. There was a deal on the table. They're showing Senator James Lankford, who people respect and love, and he says he fought hard for something that actually brought some compromise, but the president says you guys were the ones who walked away from the table.
James had a better poker face than I did. Look, that bill did not solve the problem, and everybody knows it. We passed H.R. 2, our now famous bill, 10 months ago, and it had 5 separate important provisions, and they all work together. You have to fix the asylum problem, the broken parole system. You got to reinstate remain in Mexico, and you have to end catch and release. That's what's putting all these dangerous people out into our communities, and then rebuild the wall, continue building the wall. That bill didn't do it, and that's why it never passed the Senate. They never actually sent it to the House because they couldn't get it through the Senate either, and everybody recognized that. They should have had our House members in the negotiation from the very beginning on that, and I said that.
And maybe could have gotten there.
We could have gotten there.
So let's listen to President Biden. This is him last night on the border bill.
But look, if we change the dynamic at the border, people pay these smugglers $8,000 to get across the border because they know if they get by and let into the country, it's 6 to 8 years before they have a hearing. Folks, I would respectfully suggest my Republican friends owe it to the American people, get this bill done. We need to act now.
Well, I'm assuming that there will be no legislation between now and the election. There was also the other moment where Marjorie Taylor Greene, the Republican from Georgia, she gets into a back and forth with President Biden, and he mentions Laken Riley's name, though he mispronounces it, says Lincoln. But then he says something like, but how many Americans are being killed by illegals? Did you catch that? And what do you think he meant by that?
I did. It was one of the times he apparently went off the teleprompter and said the obvious truth. And we're asking the same question. And it is a scourge across the country. This is a humanitarian catastrophe, not just because of the people that are being affected, those who are being trafficked into the country, but now because we have Laken Riley type events all around the country. We had one in Louisiana just 2 days, I think it was 2 days after Laken's brutal murder. We had a violent rape of a 14-year-old girl in South Louisiana. This is happening in communities all around the country.
By a migrant.
By an illegal migrant who's been released into the country. And these are people that they know are criminals. We passed the Laken Riley Act on the floor just a few hours before the president did the State of the Union. 170 Democrats voted against it. And it simply said that ICE would actually have to detain and put on a path to deportation people who are dangerous. I can't believe they voted against that.
Well, and you have had conversations with the president. You've done this publicly, but also privately, really pushed him toward executive action. And now there's this debate about whether he could do something that would make a substantive change at the border. You said some of this is now going to be election year hijinks and that kind of thing, but folks will say you pushed him to do executive orders. Do you now think they will or won't work?
He'd better do it. He has the authority. I've read him the provisions of the law that allow him broad authority. I mean, Section 212F of the Immigration and Nationality Act says the president can close the border entirely if he deems it to be in the country's interest. When I told him that the first time, he said, it seems like that's the break the glass option. Well, yes, it is, Mr. President.
Yes,
is 302,000 people coming across the border in December alone a break the glass moment? I think it is. We had that conversation probably early January. He won't acknowledge it. First, he said he didn't have the authority. Now he says he's reluctant to use it. If he would just do one executive order and reinstate remain in Mexico, the Border Patrol, the people in charge say it would reduce the flow by 70%, an estimated 70%. I told him that. I said, why won't you do it? He goes, Mexico doesn't want to do that. With respect, Mr. President, we're the United States. They did it before. President Trump did that. Why can't you do it? Conditions are different.
Let me
now,
ask
he
you
says.
something. So you've seen the president behind the scenes. You've had communication with him. You've said you've talked to him. You read him that portion of the bill. And then you saw him last night. And Democrats this morning are high-fiving each other saying, whew, he's going to make it. He's going to fight. He's going to get us all the way through, and he's going to take on Donald Trump. He's going to take it to him every day. Now, to me, a State of the Union for a president, they are set up for success. So it was a low bar. He cleared it very well, and now the Democrats are happy today. And the talk about replacing him at the convention will go away. Do you think it lasts?
I don't. I think anybody can read a teleprompter, and I'm sure he practiced it 100 times before he went to the floor, and he even mumbled through parts of it and skipped parts of it, you know. I think he's a very weak president. I think everybody in America knows it. About 73% of the people in the latest poll, Americans, think the country's headed in the wrong direction. And the State of the Union is in decline, very sadly. It pains us to say so, but decline in the economy and our sovereignty with the open border, the security of our streets in every country, and, of course, our stature on the world stage. We cannot have 4 more years of this. We will lose the republic if Joe Biden is reelected.
What did you think of him starting with Ukraine funding and then eventually getting to Israel and talking about this port that he wants America to build in Gaza?
Yeah, it was such a bad look. I mean, normally a State of the Union at least has some segments that are unifying, you know, where everyone can join in and applaud the country, applaud America's greatness. None of that last night. It was a hyper-partisan attack speech. It was a campaign speech, it really was, and a pretty vitriolic one at that, calling out, you know, President Trump almost by name. His predecessor, he said, what, 13 times? It was just so over the top and so inappropriate, and it's not what the country needs.
Well, he heads out now to a number of swing states. He takes this campaign on the road, and they're going to point to the jobs numbers this morning and say, look, this is good. Unemployment is down. GDP is up. Hang with me, and you're going to start to feel it in your own pocketbook.
With 17.9% inflation and the highest household debt of all time, and $11,400. That's the amount that the average American household is having to spend more just to make basic ends meet. It doesn't matter what he says. The facts are stubborn things.
All right, Mr. Speaker, thanks for being here this morning with us.
Thank you.
See you.
We appreciate it.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.